We see a little bit of a shaky time right now when it comes to the gold market. Like 2 or 3 years ago, everybody would have been excited to be around 4,000 US dollar in gold and $60 in silver. But right now, the sentiment shifted. And we always say when people are scared and want to run away from an asset, that's exactly the time where we as a contrarian investors want to go out, look for exciting stories and try to find really good assets for cheaper prices. And today I'm having an interview with Robert Wrixon. He is the CEO of a company called Nordic Resources. And as the name already indicates, we are sitting in Finland. You have 3 gold projects and all across you're getting above 1 million ounces, 1.2 million ounces of gold. You also have exciting nickel projects. First of all, Robert, it's great to have you. I'm looking forward to our interview.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks for having me on.
So before we go into the details and talk about the project in more detail and why you think your stock could maybe benefit from the, let's say, re-rate potential, we go into that deeper. But let's start with the overall macro situation. You are an investor yourself. You see the gold price, you see where it has been, you see where it is right now, and you're running an exploration company. How is everything going around this noise is going to affect you and your work? Or do you think it's just noise and it's just a short-term, let's say, breakdown in the gold price?
Yes, I think you have to remember the absolute price of gold here is still well over $4,000 an ounce. I mean, that's a price at which, if we can't make money on our gold projects, we shouldn't be in the gold business. There's no doubt it's a little bit softer because of the direction of travel. It used to be almost 5,500. Now it's 4,100, 1,200. But that's okay. I mean, we as Nordic Resources have a lot of money in the bank. We raised a lot of money last year, 17 million Australian dollars. We still have the vast majority of that still in the bank account, and we're exploring and we're using it to drill. We have drilling now planned for the second half of this year, 2 rigs this time, and we're fully funded for all of that and much more besides. So it really doesn't bother us at all. And as I said, you mentioned I'm a shareholder. I actually just picked up another 1 million shares in Nordic Resources about just under a month ago by exercising some options at 20 cents. So yeah, I'm a big believer in the company.
So you want to grow with the company, right? That's always what we always tell our investors. If you are investing into a junior mining stock, it makes always sense to look at the holdings of the management. Because if you don't believe into your own story, why should we or I believe into your story? So you are committed, you and your team are buying stocks on the exchange and have own dollars into the stock, which is a good point, and we can make a tick behind that as well. Let's talk a little bit more about the fundamentals. We talked about it already. You are positioned in Finland. You have exciting projects in the nickel space, but also in the gold space. You're now focusing a little bit more on gold. You have 3 gold projects. Give us a little bit of an overview about the company.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're actually focused pretty much 100% on the gold at this point. We do have a very large nickel cobalt resource. It's actually the largest undeveloped nickel cobalt resource in the EU, in the company, also in Finland. They were the original assets that the company was listed on. But at the moment, I think if you're talking about something that has a chance to get into production in the nearer term, and what's generating a lot of the excitement in the company and the reason why people like myself and others are putting money into the company, it's really around the gold projects. 3 gold projects, yes, in central Finland, all very close to each other. So what we're hoping to create is a gold mining district between these 3 projects. And we're actually looking at trying to acquire potentially some other projects in the area. So we're big believers. And I think, the thing is, when you have projects that close to each other, they're all about 60 kilometers, within 60 kilometers from each other. A processing solution that works for one of the projects should work for them all. So all the ounces we have are going to be valuable, because there should be a path to get all of these ounces out of the ground and mined.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more on the gold side then. You have, as we said, 3 projects. You have more than 1.2 million ounces in total, but that's split. You have around 800,000 on copper and the rest is shared between the other 2. Give us an idea about the location, and also you also did drilling. You had some very good results on copper, but also on the other project. So give us an idea in which direction you're heading with those gold resources.
Yeah, most of the excitement is around the copper deposit. If you look back 4 years ago, copper was a 330,000 ounce deposit. in drilling over the previous 4 years. Very little drilling, 6,000 meters, got it up to 815,000 ounces. And that's what got our attention. We could see that when you have such a large increase in the number of ounces with such a small amount of drilling, it suggests there's a lot more to give. That's when we acquired the projects. We moved as quick as we could to get them. And we have pretty much drilled almost nonstop since we acquired them a year ago. All of the drilling has been done, almost 10,000 meters at COPSA, a little bit at one of the other projects as well. Some really good results. We've basically stepped out 50 to 100 meters on each side around COPSA. The mineralization still continuing. So certainly when we get the resource update out at COPSA scheduled for about 3 months' time, we're hoping for a significant increase in COPSA. So 815,000 thousand ounces at the moment. We're hoping for a lot more in the next resource update around the end of September.
Perfect. And when we look at the, let's say, jurisdiction itself, Finland, a lot of people went into Finland over the past few years. When you look at it from the outside, you wouldn't really believe that Finland is a mining hub, but the opposite is the case, right? Agnico is there actually with Europe's largest gold mine. We have a lot of majors coming into the Nordic countries, let's say, and also the infrastructure is way better than being in the middle of nowhere. When we look at your map in your corporate presentation, it tells us that there's actually a railway more or less connecting all three deposits, and also a first quantum is close by with a mill. So why is Finland exciting for you?
Yeah, Finland is, I would say, on a par with the main mining jurisdictions of the world. The tier one jurisdictions like Canada, the US, Australia, the mining code's very similar. It's an OECD country. You've got strong security of tenure, good mining code. And as you said, first world infrastructure, which allows large projects to get built and be relatively efficient. You make a good point about Agnico. Not only do they have Europe's largest gold mine, they just did one of the largest gold acquisitions in recent memory, certainly in Europe, by acquiring, at the same time, they bought out Orion Resources and Rupert Resources, which are gold projects that were relatively close to their mine. So they've effectively consolidated the Lapland gold belt. And Orion Resources, they paid $500 million Canadian dollars for, and which they had no resources at all in the ground, but they had some good-looking intersections, and it was very close to Rupert Resources, the Ikari project, 4 million ounces at 2 grams per ton, but they paid 700 Australian dollars per ounce in the ground, which just goes to show how strongly Agnico believe in not only the gold market itself, but also Finland as a jurisdiction, because that's a good premium, that's a good price to pay for ounces in the ground. And when you're talking about Finland, it's not just gold. Finland has basically the entirety of European nickel value chain. They've got 2 fairly significant nickel mines, very large, lower grade nickel mines that are still in operation and making money because it's such an efficient place to do business. They also have 2 nickel smelters in Finland. So, it's a place where you can build and operate mines very effectively. It's a good jurisdiction.
I would say that as well, especially from the European point of view. Finland looks great. Just from what you hear and see and the political side, that's a very, very good place to be in. And it's great that you have your projects there. Let's talk a little bit about the corporate strategy going forward, right? Because a lot of exploration companies, they drill, go back to the market and drill again. And that's the usual game. But what would be the gameplay for you for the future? Give us an idea, when you invest today, what could be the potential exit in the future?
Well, it's a really good question. I think we are slightly different, and I would argue better than most as an investment play in that sense, because yes, we are still in an exploration phase in the sense that all 3 of our projects are definitely not drilled out, and the more we drill, the more that we see that the previous owners were capital constrained. Because as we step out and we keep drilling, we find more and more gold. So of course it's worth it for us to try to build the resources and show how big this can really be. But you have to remember that we have a couple of advantages. One is that at COPSA there's already a granted mining concession. It's conditionally granted. We have to get a road access granted, and we have to get land zoning done. But having the mining concession is a great start. It allows us to start focusing on nearer term production options. And amazingly, there are two existing plants in the region that can handle the ore from COPSA or the other projects. One of them is the Liva mine and plant, and Liva has been on care and maintenance for a few years, but they've just announced a deal to do a backdoor listing onto the Canadian Stock Exchange with a deal with Edgemont Gold. I know that they're hoping to get that plant and operation back into operation by the middle of next year. And also there's the first quantum mine at Pasalmi, which is a formerly operating copper zinc mine. That mine just closed down a couple of years ago. The plant is still there, not necessarily doing anything at the moment. So there's an interesting play to happen there that maybe we can sort of work with First Quantum to try and find a way to get our ore processed there. But obviously, all I can say is we're talking to the people around us and our neighbors. I'm not allowed to sort of say exactly where things are, but I can say that there's probably a deal that makes sense, I would hope. So we have some advantage in the sense that there's a lot of existing, really good transport infrastructure, and there's existing processing infrastructure around, and a conditionally granted mining permit at COPSA. And a lot of other projects do not have that level of advancement and that sort of optionality around their primary deposit. So we are in a great position. So I think what you're going to find is in the next 12 months, there's going to be a lot of very important news coming out, not only exploration and resource growth, as you mentioned, but also probably some more interesting corporate type activities and things that will help us get closer to production.
No, very good. Thank you for answering that question. And I think that's very important, right? You have some options, you have other mines nearby, you have the infrastructure, you already have the mining concession in place. So you have a lot of flexibility, I would say, in terms of just go out and drill. You can try to manage some other opportunities and pathways for the future. That's very good.
Yeah. So yeah. And I just add, actually, what's very interesting is that it allows us to have a lot of interesting news for the investor. It's not like we're waiting for one deal to be done, or we're waiting for one thing from the mines department that we need, or the environmental department. We can keep the market very excited with all of the drilling and exploration that we're doing. We should have a lot of very interesting results coming out almost constantly for the next 12 months, while at the same time quietly progressing all the other items that get us closer to production, which is a great position to be in.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert, for giving us a, let's say, brief corporate overview from an CEO perspective. Let's switch real quick, because you're also, as we said in the beginning, an investor. And looking at the company as an investor, what would you say are your three main reasons why you just bought recently, as you said, or exercised your options at the 20-cent level? What were the three main reasons? Why did you put own money into the stock, and why could maybe someone else follow your doing?
Fundamentally, if you just look at the numbers, Nordic Resources is wildly undervalued on a dollar per ounce in the ground basis. I speak in Australian dollars because we're listed in Australia, but I already mentioned that Rupert was bought out for $700 an ounce. We are currently valued at around 60 Australian dollars per ounce in the ground, which is less than a tenth of that. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to become Ickery, but even our Western Australian peers listed on ASX, who have similar size of resource, and I'm talking about the existing resource, not what it's going to be, over 1 million ounces at around a gram per ton, with potentially plants nearby that could be used for offsite processing. The typical valuation per ounce in the ground is somewhere around 150 to 250 Australian dollars per ounce in the ground. And as a reminder, we're only trading at 60. So from a fundamental value perspective, it was impossible for me not to try. And when I had the opportunity, it's very hard for me to buy on market, because I'm almost always in possession of some information, but because these were options that I could exercise at 20 cents, and the price of the company was 20 cents at the time, that was a great opportunity for me. So that's fundamentally why. And I think the interesting thing is, one of the reasons we may be undervalued is because we are in Finland. And for an Australian investor, they don't know much about it. It's quite far away. Europe as a jurisdiction, they're a little bit nervous about. So, there's kind of a European or a Finland discount applied, even though there shouldn't be, because Finland is a great mining jurisdiction. But this is an opportunity for everyone else. I think European investors, such as the people who you would talk to on a regular basis are very comfortable with Finland as a jurisdiction. And this is the arbitrage that provides opportunity for your listeners and your client base. Secondly, I think there's a great time to invest because we've been drilling for almost a year now. Almost 10,000 meters of drilling done, all done and paid for. None of that drilling is yet into a resource. So that 1.2 million ounces of resource, or 815,000 of COPSA, is going to change. And it's all been drilled. And it's not only COPSA is going to have a resource update, but also two of our other projects at Angisneva and Vesipira, which are in the Kimula area. There's 3 resource updates coming between now and the end of the year, which will be very important. And I think the market will be very happy when they see them. And thirdly, I think you have to look at what's happening in the region where we are, not just Finland, where there's so much excitement around what Agnico is doing and the Rupert deal. And you have all these Canadian investors who are about to make a very large amount of money, which is great. But also, if you talk about the Lapland, the Central Lapland Gold Belt has been somewhat consolidated now by Agnico. We're next on the list. The Middle Ostrobothnia Gold Belt, it's not just us, although we are the largest, gold resource ounce holder in Finland now, not called Agnico Eagle. But the Middle Ostrobothnia Gold Belt also has, as I mentioned, Liva Gold, which is going to be listed in Canada soon, and they're going to be getting into operation soon, which is great news, I think, for the sector. And then also, Gemdale Gold are quite close to us in the Middle Ostrobothnia Gold Belt. They don't have any resources yet, but they have a pretty strong market cap. They've had a great listing. They've got Eldorado Gold, which is a $10 billion company, as a 10% shareholder. So there's a lot of activity happening. And I think, and so there's something interesting is going to happen in this region in the near future. And there's, whether it's a roll-up consolidation play or us all working together to get things into production, because there's a lot of gold there. And as I mentioned before, we are by far the largest resource holder in that region. So whatever's happening, we're going to be a part of it. So you put it all together, and why wouldn't you invest, right?
Yeah, sounds very good. Thank you very much, Robert, for giving us those overview. And as I said, those 3 reasons why you put your own money into the company. And I think that's very compelling story. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. I'm looking forward to catch up with you again soon and talk about the newest developments, because as you said, you have a lot of news flow to come. Thanks for your time, and we talk again quite soon. Thank you very much.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Jan.